3 days. That's roughly how long you've had this feeling, this heaviness that isn't sadness, this electricity that isn't anxiety. Something inside you is rearranging itself, and your logical mind keeps trying to dismiss it. But it won't go away. It can't go away. Because what's happening to you right now isn't a mood, it's a signal, and if you ignore it, you'll regret it. For so long, you've been waiting, stuck in a holding pattern that made no sense, conversations that led nowhere, decisions that refused to form no matter how hard you tried, answers that stayed just beyond your reach, hiding behind a door that wouldn't open no matter how many times you knocked. You've been patient, you've been frustrated, you've wondered if the waiting would ever end, and now, without warning, that door is beginning to unlock. There is a quiet shift happening right now, something subtle but impossible to ignore if you slow down enough to feel it. It is not loud, it is not dramatic on the surface, but beneath everything, something is beginning to move again. The pause that held you captive is releasing its grip. The silence that surrounded you is starting to speak, and what it's saying will change everything if you're willing to listen. The moon has just moved into Gemini, and this is where the stillness begins to break. Gemini is not a quiet energy. It doesn't sit still. It doesn't wait politely for permission. It moves. It speaks. It connects dots that were invisible just moments before. When the moon, which governs your emotions, your inner rhythms, your daily experiences, enters this sign, something activates within you. Your mind wakes up, not gradually, not gently. It wakes up like someone turned on a light in a room that's been dark for far too long. You might notice it first as a sudden urge, the need to check your phone, the pull to reach out to someone you haven't spoken to in weeks, the strange compulsion to revisit something you thought was finished, something left unresolved, something that still has its hooks in you even though you try to walk away. This is not random restlessness. This is not your imagination playing tricks. This is your inner world sending a signal that demands attention. Pay attention. Something is coming through. Something important. Something you've been waiting for without even realizing you were waiting. But here's what makes this moment different from any ordinary shift. It's everything that came before it. Mercury, the planet that rules communication, information, and the way you process everything around you has only recently emerged from its retrograde phase. And it wasn't just any retrograde. It happened in Pisces, the most confusing, the most unclear, the most emotionally turbulent sign for Mercury to travel through. Pisces energy blurs lines. It makes it hard to separate what's real from what you're imagining, intuition from fear, truth from wishful thinking. During that time, nothing was clear. Messages were delayed or misunderstood completely. Conversations felt like they were happening underwater, muffled and distorted. Your own thoughts may have felt scattered, uncertain, impossible to trust. You probably questioned yourself more than usual, second-guessed decisions you once felt confident about, wondered if you were seeing things clearly or just seeing what you desperately wanted to see. That fog, that confusion, that frustrating inability to find solid ground, it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't the universe punishing you or testing your patience for no reason. It was preparation. Because sometimes, before true clarity can arrive, you have to sit in the unknown long enough to appreciate what understanding truly means. You have to feel lost before being found means anything at all. Now, as the moon steps into Gemini, something remarkable begins to happen. All that information that was floating around during the retrograde, formless and hidden and impossible to grasp, starts to organize itself. Think of it like a room filled with scattered papers, notes, fragments of conversations, pieces of dreams, half-formed ideas that never quite took shape. For weeks you've been walking through that room, unable to make sense of anything. The papers kept shifting every time you tried to read them. Nothing stayed in place long enough to understand. But now Gemini enters that room and begins to sort through the chaos. It picks up each piece, examines it carefully, places it exactly where it belongs. It connects what was separate. It brings words to feelings that had none. It gives shape and form to things that once felt impossible to describe or explain. And because the moon moves quickly through signs, this shift doesn't take long to notice. It can happen within hours, sometimes within moments. Suddenly, something makes sense in a way it absolutely never did before. A conversation you had last week reveals its true meaning. A decision you've been avoiding suddenly feels obvious. A person you couldn't understand becomes completely, startlingly clear. This is the translation beginning. The universe is finally speaking in a language you can understand. But there's more happening in the sky right now, and this is where it gets truly interesting. The sun is in Aries. Aries doesn't wait around contemplating options. It doesn't analyze endlessly or get lost in possibilities. Once Aries knows what to do, it moves, with instinct, with fire, with a clarity that cuts through hesitation like a blade through morning fog. So here's what's actually happening in this moment. Gemini is activating your mind, bringing clarity to thoughts that were murky and confused. Aries is activating your will, preparing you to act on whatever you discover. This creates something incredibly powerful, an alignment between thinking and doing that rarely occurs with such precision. Ideas are no longer just ideas anymore. They feel like directives, like instructions from something larger than yourself, like something you're genuinely meant to follow, not just consider. You might start to feel this as a nudge, gentle at first, easy to ignore if you're not paying attention, but persistent. A thought that keeps returning no matter how many times you push it away. A realization that feels too clear, too specific, too undeniably true to dismiss. Or maybe a message from someone that arrives at exactly the moment you needed it, saying exactly what you needed to hear in words you couldn't have predicted. These are not coincidences. They never were. They are part of a larger flow that is beginning to pick up speed, carrying you towards something you've been moving toward all along. What matters most right now is not just that information is arriving, it's that you are finally able to receive it clearly. Before, something was blocking the signal, static on the line, interference that made everything feel uncertain and unstable. You may have sensed that answers were close, hovering just at the edge of your awareness, but every time you reached for them they slipped away like water through fingers. You may have had moments of clarity that dissolved as quickly as they appeared, leaving you more confused than before. That interference is fading now, and in its place something new is building. Confidence. Not the loud kind that announces itself to everyone. This is quieter, steadier, more real. It feels like seeing something from a higher perspective and realizing with absolute certainty that the answer was always there. You just weren't ready to see it. You weren't meant to see it until exactly this moment. This marks the beginning of movement again. The pause is ending. The silence is starting to speak in clear, unmistakable terms. And whatever comes through now is not random. It is not meaningless. It is part of a sequence that has been unfolding for longer than you realize, leading somewhere very specific. You may not see the full picture yet. That will come. But the first piece is arriving right now. And once it does, everything begins to shift in ways you cannot yet imagine. As this movement continues, something even more remarkable unfolds beneath the surface. The energy is no longer just about receiving information. It's about recognizing what that information truly means. When the moon travels through Gemini, it doesn't just deliver messages like a passive courier. It sharpens your awareness. It allows you to see connections that were hidden in plain sight all along, patterns that only now begin to make sense. You may find yourself revisiting recent conversations in your mind, replaying certain moments that seemed insignificant at the time, and suddenly understanding them completely differently than you did before. What once felt confusing now feels intentional. What felt random now reveals purpose, almost as if everything that happened was quietly, deliberately leading you to this exact realization, as if the confusion itself was necessary, part of a design you couldn't see while you were inside it. This is where the shift becomes deeply personal. The clarity you're experiencing is not generic. It's not a message meant for everyone. It is directly tied to something specific you have been waiting on, something that felt delayed or uncertain during the recent weeks. Gemini energy works quickly, yes, but it's also remarkably precise. It brings forward the exact piece of information you need at the exact moment you're ready to process it. This might arrive through a text message that makes your heart stop, a sudden idea that feels like it came from somewhere outside yourself entirely, or maybe just a quiet inner knowing that settles into your body like absolute truth. When it arrives, you'll feel it immediately. There will be no question. It carries weight. It carries the unmistakable sense that this is important, that this changes something fundamental about your path forward. At the same time, Aries energy intensifies in the background. The sun in Aries is never passive. It doesn't sit with information for long, turning it over endlessly without action. Once clarity appears, Aries pushes forward, firmly but not forcefully. It encourages movement, decision, committed action. This creates a powerful combination. Your mind activated by Gemini's swift clarity, your will activated by Aries' fierce determination. Together they create unstoppable momentum. You may feel it as growing restlessness, an inability to stay still any longer, a burning desire to move forward, to respond, to finally make a decision you've been postponing for far too long. And unlike before, this time it feels easier. The hesitation is fading away, because the path ahead no longer feels shrouded in uncertainty. There's something else happening here that's easy to miss if you're not paying close attention. The information coming through right now isn't just about this immediate moment. It's setting the stage for what's about to unfold next. Soon the Sun will align with Saturn, the planet of structure, responsibility, and long-term direction. Saturn doesn't deal in temporary choices or fleeting decisions. It builds things that last. This means whatever clarity arrives now is not temporary. It has lasting purpose. It's preparing you for a decision or commitment that will carry weight far beyond today, far beyond this week or month. This is about the trajectory of your life shifting into new alignment. So as these realizations surface, there's a quiet invitation within them. Take them seriously, not in a heavy, overwhelming way that creates anxiety, but in a grounded, aware way that honors their significance. Because this is not just a passing thought drifting through your mind. This is part of a larger sequence guiding you towards something more stable, more defined, more real than anything you've experienced before. The more you allow yourself to notice it, to trust it completely, the clearer everything becomes. Then the pace picks up even more. Gemini energy never stays still for long. Once it starts moving, it gathers speed rapidly. What began as subtle shifts become something impossible to ignore. Conversations flow where there was only silence before. Responses arrive faster than expected. Ideas link together one after another, creating chain reactions of understanding that build with every passing hour. It can feel like everything is happening at once, like pieces are falling into place faster than you ever anticipated, like watching a puzzle complete itself before your very eyes without any effort on your part beyond simply paying attention. This is when the shift becomes completely undeniable. You may notice sudden changes in how you think, how you respond, how you feel about situations that once seemed impossibly complicated. Decisions that felt crushing now feel obvious. Questions that lingered without answers now resolve themselves almost effortlessly. With each new realization, momentum builds, pulling you forward into something entirely new. What makes this phase so powerful is the interaction between air and fire. Gemini fuels ideas, communication, the mental clarity. Aries transforms those ideas into action, into motion, into concrete reality. Together they create movement that is fast, direct, and impossible to resist. Like a spark catching strong wind, growing more powerful with every passing moment. Once it starts, it doesn't slow down easily. You may notice external confirmations aligning with internal realizations. A message that validates exactly what you were already thinking. A conversation that mirrors your inner clarity back to you perfectly. A sign that appears at precisely the right moment, as if the universe itself is acknowledging you're on the right track. These synchronicities aren't coincidental. They never were. They're part of how this energy works, bridging gaps between thought and reality, between inner knowing and outer manifestation. And underneath all of this, a quiet but profound realization forms. The waiting period is truly over. Uncertainty is dissolving like morning mist under strong sun. In its place, something much clearer, much more direct is emerging. It may not answer every question immediately, but it gives you enough to move forward with confidence. Sometimes that's all that's needed to change absolutely everything. As clarity continues building, something deeper settles into place. A quiet realization that transforms how you see everything simultaneously. It's no longer about receiving information or understanding it intellectually. It becomes about recognizing what it means for your direction forward, what it means for who you're becoming. The moon continues carrying messages, but now those messages feel more personal, more specific to your exact situation. Almost as if they're guiding you toward a decision that cannot be postponed any longer. There's a shift in how you process things during this phase. Instead of overthinking every detail until paralysis sets in, instead of questioning every possibility until nothing feels certain, a natural knowing takes over. Gemini clears the mind, organizes the noise, separates what genuinely matters from what never did. Meanwhile, Aries keeps pushing, gently but persistently, encouraging movement, encouraging decisive choice. Together they create a moment where hesitation feels completely out of place, where staying stuck feels far more uncomfortable than taking a step into the unknown. Something you were unsure about suddenly feels obvious. A path with too many variables simplifies itself before your eyes. Even if the full outcome remains invisible, the next step becomes crystal clear. There's a sense you're meant to take it without delay. This is when energy becomes quietly urgent, not rushed or chaotic, just precise and perfectly timed. It carries the undeniable feeling that this moment matters, that what you do with this clarity has impact reaching far beyond today. The upcoming alignment between Sun and Saturn draws closer. Its presence can already be felt as stabilizing force beneath surface chaos. Saturn deals in commitment, structure, consequences that echo through years. Insights arriving now aren't random thoughts. They're preparing you for something requiring you to stand firmly behind decisions, to build on them consistently over time. There's quiet pressure building, not stressful pressure, focusing pressure. It asks you to transform understanding into action, possibility into reality. The longer you sit with clarity, the more obvious it becomes. This cannot be ignored. It must be followed. Then everything leads to one defining moment. Energy reaches its peak. The message finally reveals itself in ways that cannot be misunderstood. Through direct conversation, sudden realization, or profound silence where everything simply clicks. However it arrives, it carries finality. The missing piece found at last. This moment feels different from everything before. No confusion remains. No second guessing haunts you. No need to analyze from countless angles. Just clarity, direct and grounded in something unshakably real. With that clarity comes natural decision. Not forced. Simply the only step that makes genuine sense. Understanding transforms into movement. Thought transforms into action. Possibility becomes reality. You feel alignment that wasn't there before. Quiet confidence replacing uncertainty. Steady and real. Knowing where you stand. Knowing what you want. Knowing exactly what comes next. This is the turning point, where everything makes sense, where waiting transforms into movement, where unknown becomes real. You're no longer lost. You're part of something larger now, moving with it, guided by clarity that grows stronger with every breath. The cycle closes, confusion releases its grip. A new chapter begins, shaped not by uncertainty but by conscious choice. The universe speaks clearly now, in perfect timing, in meaningful connection. The more you listen and act, the more everything aligns in ways once thought impossible. Whatever message found you, whatever realization took hold, I'd trust it arrived exactly when meant to. This was never about rushing, always about waiting for the right moment, for perfect alignment allowing clear sight. Now you see, everything moves, step by step, in a direction finally, undeniably, completely your own.